we are a big fan of exosome. I would have Tom Brady and all them on speed dial. I think this works again for mild to moderate injuries. Most popular.
Dr. Juan Bautista, a Fresno-based medical doctor and recovery specialist who literally lives at the intersection of elite performance and next-level healing. Dr. Bautista has applied his clinical expertise to help athletes across the spectrum, from high school football standouts to Olympic competitors, not just get out of pain, but rebuild movement patterns, improve recovery, and perform at their peak. He's taken that work global, recently returning from Saudi Arabia, where he collaborated on athletic recovery protocols alongside fighters like Virgil Ortiz, bringing cutting-edge recovery strategies to a sport that demands durability, speed, and resilience. What makes Dr. B unique isn't just his medical training, but he's a doctor with a performance mindset. It's how he blends evidence-based medicine with practical recovery solutions athletes actually feel in the gym and on the field. Whether you're battling persistent injury, trying to shorten your return to play timeline, or just want to be the most durable version of yourself, this conversation is one you'll want to hear.
IVs that was started from Dr. John Myers and Johns Hopkins. These athletes, they love to come in and get these IVs, especially when they're in a high oxidative state. There's also some TikTok medicine we have to be careful for. What makes a professional, what makes the next level athlete is investing in themselves. So if you look at these amazing athletes out there, from Canelo to NFL Tom Brady, right? They're really learning how to take care of their bodies.
I've seen this before, and I was always curious, like, why does LeBron James use this?
Right. So these are soft hyperbaric chambers.
So this will help reduce inflammation?
Yeah, you have people like, the ones that really made it famous was Floyd Mayweather and of course LeBron James. And I think using it 2 to 3 times a week is feasible. If someone has a completely torn ACL, I think it's ridiculous when someone does stem cells.
All right, with me today, we have Dr. Juan Bautista. He is an expert when it comes to athlete recovery and regenerative medicine. We've talked in the past about training your brain, training your eyes, training your body. But what most athletes miss is actually recovering from injury. If you play long enough, you will get hurt, and you need to recover the right way, the best way. So before we dive in and pick Dr. B's brain, I want to make sure you look up on your screen and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you have clicked that notification button, because the only way we can grow this and get guests like Dr. B is if we have people listening. So please subscribe to the channel and make sure to tune in. Drop what you're doing now, because these insights are going to be a key to your athletic success and recovery. So Dr. B, let's just jump in. What do you think is one of the top mistakes athletes are doing for when it comes to getting the right recovery, whether they're high school, college, or pro?
Well, I think first of all, when we were younger, recovery meant rest, right? We thought recovery equated rest. We know that's not true, right? So the example I give is, God forbid, you're an athlete and you sprain your ankle. The coach is not just going to say, take the day off. He's going to send you to, physical therapy or with your athletic trainer. So recovery is active. It's something that is dynamic. And the next thing is it's measurable. So when we recover, whether it's red light therapy, whether it's with using the sauna, right? Infrared saunas and whatnot, we should be having metrics to see, is this thing working? In the past, we blamed injury on overtraining syndrome, right? Oh, this athlete's overtraining. And we know now that that's not necessarily true. It's not that an athlete that we have is not training hard, but it's more about their allostatic load. Does their body have the ability to handle this allostatic load, or a savings account full of what God gave us, our natural ability to heal? So again, one of it is, measurable goals, which is very important. And the second thing, or measurable recovery, I should say. But the second thing is active recovery.
Okay. And so how does someone know how those, like you said, the allostatic measurements? So if someone was on their own and they didn't know how to recover the proper way, they're with a professional, but they feel like they might not be achieving the best recovery, how do they know?
Right. So nowadays, and that's the great thing about technologies, there's things like the Oura Ring, the BioStrap, the Whoop, all these different metrics that we can use in conjunction with our blood work, right, and different measurements. The first thing is always getting a baseline, making sure, unfortunately, when you and I were in training, we were taught, hey, we need these thinkers. And then all of a sudden we graduate and say, nope, don't think anymore. Follow this algorithm, right? We don't need critical thinkers. Like, wait, what happened here? So a lot of times we have to think outside the box. And the reason I say that is because traditional laboratories are an average, and most of these were done in the 70s, of a whole groups of people, but you may be different, just like an educational system where you have some people on one side of the curve that are very smart, you have other people that are barely passing, and a whole bunch of people in the middle. So let's find out what's your middle, what's your optimal. A good example would be vitamin D, right? We know now through the Harvard NFL study, right, and other studies as well, that showed it's not just important to take vitamin D, but we probably want that vitamin D between 40 nanograms per milliliter all the way to about 80 nanograms per milliliter. So you can take vitamin D, but if you're not in that range, you're not optimal, right? And the reason I say that, with that same study, I hope I get my numbers right here, they showed that a vitamin D that was low, your chances of having a lower extremity injury were about 56%, right? Number one being hamstring, second one being groin if your levels are below 30. Now, if your levels of vitamin D are very low, which is defined below 20 nanograms per milliliter, that number jumps up to 73%. So you have a 73% chance of getting injured during the season of a lower extremity injury. Isn't that amazing? So
I want to say this one more time, because this is truly amazing.
Yeah.
I'm blowing my mind right now.
Right. Yeah.
So 73% higher chance of injury with the lower extremities if you're low on vitamin D, under 20.
So low is under 20 nanograms per deciliter.
Under 29,
under
lower than
20,
that.
Yeah. So
oh, sorry, under
20.
30.
And then very low is under 20.
Wow.
Correct? So amazing data. And so, if you and I were gambling people when we go to the casino, that's pretty good odds, 73% that you're going to get injured. So again, it goes back to measurable goals. And I think that is where, I've trained plenty of athletes that are, professionals all the way down to the high school level. And it's a game of inches. It's a game of millimeters. It's a game of milliseconds. Yeah. And to me, if you're injured, then you're just like me. You're a spectator. So it's about getting you back on the field and getting to your optimal level.
That's amazing. I know a lot of people are asking questions about peptides.
Yes.
Can we go over the different peptides?
Yeah.
One, are they useful? Should every athlete be considering them during injury? And is it more hype, or is there a real benefit to it?
Those are great questions. And so first and foremost, for those that don't know what a peptide is they're basic chains of amino acids. And these chains of amino acids give signals, right? Or messages. The first peptide synthesized was insulin, right? Insulin gives you a message that says, hey, get that sugar that's in the blood and put it in my muscles. So there's different peptides, whether they be for inflammation or for injury, that give a message to tell your body to do something. So I'll give you an example. A very common or a popular one amongst athletes is BPC 157, body protective compound 157, which many athletes have used to heal. The first thing I say, and this is coming as a father and also someone that takes care of many professional athletes, you have to be careful what you take. So many of these peptides are on the WADA list. And I do tell athletes, I say, hey, you do not want to jeopardize your career or something. Even if a provider, I had an athlete the other day say, oh, my provider said this is undetectable. I said, no. If you can make it, you can detect it. And I always want what's best for my athlete. So one, you have to know what you can and what you cannot take. Number two, we have to be very, very careful of which peptides are available, whether in your state or in the country. Mm-hmm. And so, in California, there's really no way to get BPC 157 unless it's a research peptide. And I'm not saying I'm against or I'm for that. BPC is a very stable peptide. But if I were taking something, I'd want it from a quality laboratory that's making it. So it's one of those things we just have to be very, very careful. One, as a clinician, if you're recommending something, or two, I'm going to put my water down here, or two, if we're not giving them the full informed consent or decision. Yeah. I'll give you an example. I get so many questions on CBD. Oh, what do you think about CBD? And I go, theoretically, it sounds good. You got these different receptors in your brain and your body that help from inflammation. But you can get CBD at AMPM supermarket. You can get it at the swap meet. You get it online. Where's the validity? Where's the testing for quality? Right. So those are things when a peptide hasn't really been in a certified laboratory, so to speak, and there's chains of amino acids, how do we know that there's not contaminants? How do we know that that sequence of amino acids is giving the right message? Especially, you'll see very popular are these stacked peptides, GHKCU, BPC117, TB500. There's no data that shows that those can be mixed without giving another signal, right?
Right. So peptide in general helps speed up recovery?
It can, yeah. So what we tell patients is peptides are giving messages for our body to do its own job of healing. So they're usually an endogenous, meaning a signal that we have inside, and we just amplify it. But I would say the other problem with peptides is, again, it's the message. So if you and I were having this conversation and our kids were running around making a lot of noise, you say, Dr. B, slow down, I can't hear. Or if I was speaking very quiet, you say, speak up. So there's certain things that can blunt that message. And that can be inflammation, that can be sugar, right? So we know people that are hyperinsulinemic or high sugar can also affect a lot of these peptides. So even before an ex-athlete or an athlete jumps on a peptide, I say, well, do we have a foundation? How's your nutrition? How is your micronutrients? You know, I always like to give out these statistics. They say that only 19% of Americans get enough zinc. Zinc is important for our fingernails, our hair. Before we got on the mic, we were talking about COVID, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was looking for zinc. It's directly proportional or works on your testosterone production. So if only 19% of Americans get enough zinc and wound healing, right? We hear a lot of people discuss zinc and its important in wound healing. So you can take all the BPC you want, but if your foundation of micronutrients, your copper, your zinc, your magnesium, your vitamin D is deficient, you're not going to get the benefit of those peptides.
Let's dive in those micronutrients real quick. So we got vitamin D, magnesium, zinc. What other top micronutrients, let's say top five, that you think athletes need to be taking, especially during recovery?
Right. So one of the big ones that we talk about, it sounds silly, is vitamin C. Vitamin C in their studies in the University of Alabama and all these big football schools that correlate vitamin C or deficiencies in vitamin C with hamstring and injuries and tendinopathies. But the reality, it goes down to, it's a different conversation, farming practices. But there was an article at Department of Food and Agriculture that showed that our kids need to eat 8 to 11 oranges to equate the vitamin C of one orange that we ate in the 80s. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
And why is vitamin C so important? It's a major antioxidant that helps out when we're in an oxidative state. So whether that's chemotherapy, whether that's, an injury. So these young athletes that you take care of, they're Ferraris. They're burning through. They're not a beat up old Camry like me.
No.
These guys need higher levels of vitamin C. And unfortunately, many athletes, we treat them all the same. They'll train or they'll eat almost like bodybuilders. Chicken, rice, broccoli. Chicken, rice, broccoli. Chicken, rice, broccoli. There's no vitamin C involved, and a lot of those don't have enough fat either. So I think vitamin C is one of the most appreciated vitamins when it comes down to athletics. Wound healing, we know it's important for collagen synthesis and the scaffolding of collagen. There's also studies that show, not just for infertility, but it can also raise your testosterone. And I keep bringing up testosterone because we often look at what's called the testosterone to cortisol ratio. And if your testosterone is low compared to your cortisol, your body is in a catabolic state. It does not want it. So
it's literally breaking down.
You got it. And we see that. We have those athletes that come to us and, Dr. B, I pulled my groin or my calf and I'm just not healing. Right? And we see those and so we exercise that calf more and that hamstring more and that groin more because we were taught it was weak. But in reality, it's the micronutrient scaffolding that we're missing.
So we got the vitamin D, the magnesium, we had the zinc, we got the vitamin C. What's your fifth one? I
would say my fifth one, if needed, is monitoring your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio.
Okay.
And the reason I say that, so omega-3s are going to be your EPA, DHA, and DPA, and your omega-6s are going to be your arachidonic acid, linoleic acid.
Okay.
And so think of omega-6 as inflammatory, and we need inflammation. If I, God forbid, poke you with a thorn, you need an inflammatory response to get rid of that thorn. Or if I have the flu and I sneeze on you, you need an inflammatory response to fight that flu. But what happens is we see some Americans that we eat way too many omega-6s, right?
Yep.
But a lot of athletes, quite the opposite. They have exhausted their omega-3s. So
Okay.
again, maybe not getting enough, from our nutrition, or they've been in an inflammatory state so long that it's depleted their omega-3. So we know now that if your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio is below 8%, you're going to have, I don't have these statistics down, but it's something close to a 34% delay in healing.
Wow.
You see an increase in concussions by about 46%. So the list goes on, and it's utilizing what God gave us, which is an efficient machine, right? But we have to give it fuel. If you have that nice Ferrari, which is a very efficient machine, it needs proper fuel. So a long answer, a quality omega-3.
So omega-3 to omega-6. So
Yes.
it's a ratio
It's a
that
ratio,
this
correct.
difference. So let's say the omega-6 is really high.
Yeah.
Are we then just taking that much more omega-3, or are we decreasing some of the
I would
omega?
work on both. And so, and you know this, dealing with great athletes, originally, you can eat junk food and get around. And
Yeah.
eventually, as you start going up the ladder into collegiate athletes and professional athletes, you have to tighten down nutrition,
Yeah.
or for long periods of time. And so you can lower your omega-6s with nutrition. Foods that are high in linoleic acid, foods that are high in arachidonic acid. So
Could you name a few of those
Absolutely.
foods?
So, whether you're in, more animal-based or vegan or plant-based, I think we all would agree that processed foods tend to be
Okay.
the highest in omega-6s, right? So I'm not trying to tell people to eat meat, or eat
Right.
plants, but lowering your processed load.
And what about like fast food?
Absolutely.
Like
So
Taco Bell,
those are going to be
McDonald's.
very high in omega-6s.
High omega-6.
Those are going to be high in omega-6s, right? And so again, maybe when you're young, your body has that savings account that can handle it, but over a period of time, it will burn out.
Okay.
The other thing is we all come from, people that are by oceans, and now we live in Chicago and Clovis and Fresno and
Mhm.
Huron, and we probably don't get as much fresh fish as we should get. So that's another reason we've seen an exhausting of our omega-3s.
So get those omega-3s higher. That's very important.
Yeah.
So now away from micronutrients, but back to like, it's very, I think we hear the word stem cells a lot.
Mhm.
Do you use stem cells?
Yeah, so we do. We are a big fan of exosomes, mesenchymal stem cells here in the United States. But, again, these stem cells, we have to think, what are we really treating? What are we trying to do? So I think, again, right now, if you got mad at me and you scratched me and I have a cut, my body has its own stem cells to heal that wound. That's why in a couple of days that cut will heal up. But it's given it the right environment. And so we know through studies in Japan and the whatnot with stem cells that we have an inverse relationship with insulin. So the higher our insulin is, the lower our stem cells work. So
Okay.
even those stem cells, we see people, I know there's a place out people go to, Tijuana. I think they do a great job there. They get these guys, I'm not saying I'm promoting a ketogenic diet, but they might do ketosis for a period of time to drop that insulin so those stem cells can work, right?
Ah,
So if we give some stem cells and, the sugar's high, we're having the fast foods we're talking about, right?
mhm.
They're probably not going to work as well.
Ah.
The other thing is the grade of injury, right? So if someone has a completely torn ACL, I think it's ridiculous when someone does stem cells. If that I would have Tom Brady and all them on speed dial, right? They would be calling me.
Yeah.
So I think this works again for mild to moderate injuries, and
Okay.
that's what we're seeing from a lot of the data.
So for the severe injuries, stem cells wouldn't be recommended.
To me, for the severe injuries, those will be an adjunct. Those would be, again, those would help your body heal quicker and probably better.
Okay. Now, we've gone through peptides, stem cells.
Mm-hmm.
We hear a lot about NAD+.
Yeah.
And certain types of IV fluids that athletes take for recovery.
Right.
What is your opinion on them? I know your office does supply them,
absolutely.
and you train athletes with them, recovery or not.
Right.
What are the benefits and pros and cons?
Yeah. So again, it goes back to micronutrients. So the Myers cocktail, which is one of the probably most popular IVs that was started from Dr. John Myers and Johns Hopkins, which was basically, again, micronutrient deficiencies that we see out in the public, but also just when you're in a highly oxidative state, you're going to run through your zinc, your vitamin C at a much higher rate. Again, depending what you read, 55 to 70% of Americans don't get enough magnesium. So this is kind of like a great multivitamin, so to speak, that's better absorbed. Now, these athletes, they love to come in and get these IVs, especially, when they're in a high oxidative state. But one of the things that we have to differentiate between is what we call TikTok medicine, right? And so you'll see, and I tell people, so if you're in Las Vegas and you see this big bag of fluid, that's usually because people are partying in Vegas, dehydrated. But if you went to any hospital, they usually give small bags of fluid so that you can absorb these micronutrients. So it's not about blasting you with all this fluid. And that's important to know. As a matter of fact, if you give these large bags of fluid, you're going to notice you're probably going to trick the nephron into peeing most of it out.
Okay.
So that's one. NAD is, again, very, very popular. I think his name's Dr. Sinclair out of Harvard is probably the authority for NAD, and an amazing, I've heard him speak several times. There's also some TikTok medicine we have to be careful for. So you'll see that it's very popular in some of these areas that are a little bit more expensive, and they charge a lot for these big doses of NAD. So these bags where you're at a spa for maybe 9 hours getting an IV. The thought process behind that, and then if you speak to physicians that study NAD, because we're still learning a lot about it, you would never want to give a whole bunch of energy, right? So NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, is a precursor to ATP, energy.
Yeah.
And you can give the example of sugar. So if right now we were monitoring cancer, we would order a PET scan, which is basically a tagged glucose or tagged sugar molecule, because these cancer cells absorb this energy, this sugar, at a higher rate. So why would we give tons and tons of energy, especially if there might be a history of cancer? So most clinicians that, study cellular medicine like to give low doses of NAD. So you'll hear some people do subcutaneous injections. Some people do IVs, but at a lower dose. And then there's some blood work. I personally like to look at a uric acid. If a uric acid is elevated, probably shouldn't give NAD. Whereas if a uric acid is low, then they might be a great candidate for NAD.
So you mentioned uric acid being low. Now, how would an athlete, let's say a college athlete, who maybe does not have access to the stuff a pro athlete would, how would they know if they need NAD, or would they ever need NAD?
Right. So usually NAD is probably going to be, we start getting a little bit older, right? So we know through studies, and this is unfortunate because I'm 45, that we really age around age 40 to 45, around 60 to 65, right?
Okay.
Whether it's telomeres, but this biological clock that tends to happen around that time, we start aging. So luckily, most of these athletes really don't need it at that younger level, right?
Okay.
Now, there might be some studies when we're talking about neurocognitive function, but NAD, which is in most of our cells, except for red blood cells, just starts to decline with age. So usually this is something that I talk about with my patients as we get a little bit older.
Now,
but going back. No, you're absolutely right. What makes a professional, what makes the next level athlete is investing in themselves, right? So I had this, when I played college football, one of my coaches told me today, Juan, at the time they called me Dr. B, because Juan, you've been to every practice, every weightlifting session, every class. Are you going to be great this year? I said, absolutely. He said, no, you're going to be average. Right? You're supposed to go to class. You're supposed to weight lift. You're supposed to go to, your practice. What are you doing extra? And so that's what I tell athletes. Learn about your body. What are you doing extra?
That's so true.
Yeah. And so if you look at these amazing athletes out there, from Canelo to, the NFL Tom Brady, right? Which not a lot of people know his connections in Fresno. They're really learning how to take care of their bodies.
You said Tom Brady's connections?
Tom Brady, his sister played softball here at Fresno State.
Oh.
And then one of the trainers there when he was with the Patriots, Moses, I'm forgetting his last name, was actually from Fresno State.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, see?
Wow, look at that. Good old Fresno, right?
Yeah.
So if we now divert a little bit into, actually, you know what? I did have one question while you were talking. It just popped in my head. So NAD, right, works on mitochondria and then helps mitochondria produce more ATP. Is that kind of how it works?
Kind of, yes. So, and this is the crazy thing. We really don't know exactly how NAD gets into the cell. Okay. Because when we're taking it, whether injection or IV, it's extracellular. There's different, theories of the difference in gradient. We just know that it eventually does rise. Oh man. So we don't know exactly how it becomes not only intracellular, but makes its trip to the nucleus, right? So we're still learning as we get going about some NAD, but we do know that NAD needs some cofactors to work, right? You've heard of NMR, NMN, right? And glutathione. These are all steps. And then even for glutathione, we can use things like vitamin C, B vitamins. So again, it all goes together. It's almost like a beautiful symphony. And we need to think of it more than just giving NAD. Right. Number one, why are they deficient? Why is someone, if you and I are the same age, why are you lower in NAD than I am? Right? Is it because of the cofactors that have been exhausted? Have you had proper recovery?
Right. Proper nutrition,
yeah.
So when I was thinking about NAD and the benefits of NAD, I also thought like red light has a similar effect on cells with regeneration, mitochondrial function, ATP. So do both of them go hand in hand? Where do you see red light as a treatment with regenerative medicine or as a recovery tool for athletes of any age?
Right. No, I think the red light is definitely one of the hottest topics right now, from anywhere from neurological disorders to actually growing plants. I just came back from Saudi Arabia. And I saw a whole field that was under red because the sun's way too hot. We're at growing a soccer field or a football field out there. One of the concepts that we have with red light therapy is that we're covered up, we're indoors, according to studies, about 90% of the time. And what we're really using is just the power of light, right, to give our body energy. And this was actually started, whether it's MIT or NASA. So it's definitely there, right? We're learning that it's part of it. I think, again, it definitely goes synchronous, but we still don't know how much, right? Is it only 15 minutes a day that we need? How close the wavelengths need to be? And that's what we're really learning in our studies. So a lot of the studies that were for our brain were actually intranasal red light therapy. So that's where we're going. I think it's going to continue to take off. And in reality, it's probably one of the safest therapies, right? Other than a pharmacologic agent that we're giving our body, this is literally the power of the sun without UVB, right? So we don't have any burning that goes on.
Quick segment break, but you're going to want to hear this. If you're an athlete, coach, or parent, and you want faster reaction, this is where we start. This is called vector ball. This ball unpredictably bounces and it changes colors, red, green, or blue. We use this to sharpen the reaction time, focus, and coordination. And here's what makes it different. Whenever you see a different color, you can assign it to left, right, pass, shoot, adding a cognitive load, meaning that frontal lobe, while you're moving around, is making faster decisions. We use this with athletes every week, and we hardwire this decision making. Train your brain, train your eyes, dominate your game. Grab the vector ball in the link in the bio or scan this QR code to get started. Let's get back to it.
Let's say you're a college or high school athlete. Should you be using red light on a daily basis? Should you use it only when you're injured? When would you use red light therapy?
Yeah. So I personally, because I have a son that plays collegiate football, I like him to use red light therapy, especially during the winter months. If he is injured, absolutely, because again, he's in an oxidative state, right? Inflammatory state, getting that red light pad or red light panel as close as possible to that injury. I think those are definitely good times to use it. Now, I am still a fan, and I know it sounds old school, of going outside, getting a little bit of sunlight. If you're worried about it, I know dermatologists get mad at me, but the first, part of the day is actually has the least amount of UVB that's out there, so the less burning that you'll have. But just many of us are covered, we're indoors, and we don't get that quality. So if you're an athlete that is training in facilities, maybe you're training in Colorado like my son, I think a red light panel would be a great Christmas gift.
Okay. Why would you not use it year round?
No, and I think, that is definitely something that you can use, but again, we don't know the data of too much. And I think we tend to jump on things right away when they work, right? And the GLPs, right? Glucagon like peptide with the Ozempics and Mounjaros. I'm a huge fan when I use them, but we still don't know what is the sequelae of getting these massive super therapeutic doses for so long. We're starting to learn, right? Yeah. Muscle mass, which is our muscles are like endocrine organs. They give myokines and all that. So the red light, I think there still needs to be data on how much is too much. Okay. Unfortunately, years ago, there was a young kid at a local college that passed away from drinking too much water, right? He became hyponatremic,
Oh.
right? Remember a frat boy, they made him drink that big thing of water. So even too much water will kill you. So I think we have to be very careful if it's too much NAD,
Right.
too much red light, and things like
So
that.
moderation is key.
Moderation is key.
Okay. And I think a lot of athletes, they hear all these different tools and they get a little overwhelmed.
Right.
If you had to nail down on a daily habit that could prevent injury,
Yep.
what would your daily habit be?
Number one is going to be your nutrition, making sure that we are getting enough protein or macronutrients, right? Protein is key. We're not bodybuilders,
Okay.
unless you're a bodybuilder. So we need fat, we need protein, we need carbohydrates. I think
Okay.
nutrition is key, especially when you're my age and you're trying to shrink. We're going to get on caloric deficits. But when you're trying to grow and get better and repair, you need to be bringing in plenty of good quality foods, right?
Yeah.
The other one is sleep. Now, we know now, you and I were not, I think I was in medical school when the first iPhone came out, and it wasn't that good. And then it got better and better. But a lot of these people now are on their phones late at night, and we know that disrupts sleep.
Yeah.
So a lot of the athletes that I deal with, hey man, during camp, we turn off that phone at 7 o'clock, and you can measure your sleep, quality of sleep again with the BioStrap,
Yeah.
the Whoop, right, the Aura Rings. So that's number two, sleep. It has to be one of the top priorities. And then the third one that I would say with athletes is recovery. Now, recovery, other than sleep, recovery, we think it as, actually, I'm going to back up. I'm going to call that stress reduction, allostatic stress.
Okay.
You and I think of stress reduction either as rest, going on a run, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, parasympathetic tone comes in slowing our heart rate down. As a matter of fact, when we measure heart rate variability, it's not just how fast or how slow, but it's the measurement, right?
Yeah.
So we need to get our heart rate down as well to get into that parasympathetic tone.
Okay.
So if we can get, for a young athlete to say, hey, not only am I going to, rest, but I'm going to get some, whether it's hyperbaric chamber, cold
Like this.
exposures with breath work, right?
Okay.
Meditation. Those are all methods you can use to get into that parasympathetic tone to heal.
So stress reduction would be, would a cold plunge be one of the items you can do for stress reduction?
Yeah, and again, we're learning more and more. We're learning that, hey, maybe too much cold plunge, right? It's bad, especially for the muscle gains that you make.
Yeah.
It tends, depending on what you read, 90 seconds to about 3 minutes max.
90 seconds, 3
Right,
minutes.
then
Okay.
you got TikTok where you're going to have them for 15 minutes,
Yeah.
ice all
Challenge.
You got it, right? Maybe that brings mental toughness, but when we're talking about recovery modalities, more isn't always better, right?
Okay.
We're learning still about fasting. How
Right.
much fasting is too much, right?
Right.
Versus what is beneficial. So before you jump in and think you need to be the best at NAD or cold plunging,
Right.
maybe sticking to a moderate schedule is better.
It's like the whole theme here. Moderation is key, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So top 5 for you, stress reduction. We got the cold plunge and cryo.
Mhm.
I know we've talked about sauna in the past. Would you recommend sauna for athletes?
I'm a huge fan of sauna for athletes, right? Especially for getting that parasympathetic tone. The only problem I see with the sauna, whether you're using a traditional wet sauna or the infrared saunas, is as it is, many of these athletes lose micronutrients, zinc and magnesium. So when we sweat, that's mainly what we're getting rid of. So if you're going to be using sauna, especially if you're working out in the sun, track, you want to make sure you're supplementing. I know this is a little controversial. I like to salt my, I use a good, whether you do a Redmond's or a Celtic or Baja Gold, whichever, making sure you're getting those electrolytes that you also lose when you're in the sauna. But I'm a huge fan of sauna.
So sauna, but replenish the
You got it.
electrolytes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then number 3, I know you mentioned meditation.
Meditation, yes. So meditation, in reality, what we're doing is slowing our heart rate and our breath down, again, to get into that parasympathetic tone. Because again, that's when our body tends to heal the best. And not only that, our lungs need training just like our muscles. And slowing that breath work down. Getting comfortable in uncomfortable situations only comes with training.
Right. So if you had to pick number 4, what would you say for stress reduction?
For stress reduction, so we said sauna, cold plunge, which I usually put together called thermal stressors.
Okay.
You know what? I'm a fan, I'm a little biased of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I do love HBOTs, whether you decide to go hard shells or soft shells. I think it's a great way to increase oxygenation, right? To mobilize stem cells.
Yeah.
I know there's, again, controversy of how much time we're learning. Again, shorter periods of time might be better, right? I think that's a great modality to consider as well.
So hyperbaric chambers will increase the amount of stem cells?
Well, so yeah, absolutely. So what happens when we're in a hyperbaric chamber, we pressurize the molecule. When we pressurize the molecule, it decreases in size. And we know now that it has an effect not only when we're in the chamber, but actually when we get out, right? So we have these different proteins that are activated when our body has a change in oxygenation and pressure. Yeah. So a lot of these hyperbaric oxygen therapy chambers are beneficial, not just by when you're in there, but actually when you get out. And that's why some people that train in this medicine or with athletes, they'd rather do multiple small sessions versus one big session.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
I heard, and this is probably more of a trend, but hypoxic breathing or not breathing and increasing stem cells.
Yeah, there is some, I went to an amazing lecture in London regarding this. It was a doctor that was in charge of the Olympic teams of Portugal. And a lot of these guys will do altitude training, right?
Mm-hmm.
They put you in a room. And so there's so much out there, like you said, that you can get lost, but that's good. Our mind is meant to be stimulated.
Right.
And the more we learn, the better we get, right? Because again, it is a game of inches, milliseconds. Yeah. So it's
everyone's looking for that little edge. I mean, that's the whole reason this podcast is here. So if you had to pick number 5.
All right. So my favorite, I'm going to mix it together, is, and again, I know people are going to criticize me, but call me a hippie. I'm a fan of earthing, or if you don't want to go that route, PEMF mat, pulse electromagnetic field mats, right? And the whole concept of this is our body is an electrical system, right? The earth is negatively charged, we're positively charged. There's an exchange of electrons that we see, and a current, so to speak, when we're touching the earth, right? And us being in my cowboy boots, our shoes and concrete, there's, again, you're going to talk about different studies, and some of them are with mice and whatnot. But I do think, and I know a lot of physical therapists, that there's a benefit, not just for injury, because most of the studies are with tendinopathies and some even with fractures, in terms of recovery of getting our body grounded. So if we talk a little bit about earthing, how do you earth? Well, I was going to say, most doctors don't like that, right? And I even though it's hard for me, we're like, this is the right way and everything else is wrong. There's a phenomenon when you think you're an expert. Yeah. We actually stop learning. We stop saying, hey, there's more out there that I don't know. Yeah. Right. And so it took me some time too to get away from saying, wait, you mean sleep or the day off isn't recovery? I don't need ibuprofen, right? Yeah. So, I love to read about this, and it's either am I okay with disagreeing and learning more and giving wishy-washy answers of I don't know how much is enough yet. Yeah. But we're learning, right? And you were asking, how do you earth? Yeah. So I personally earth in my backyard. I do it 2 days a week for about 30 slow breaths in, 30 slow breaths out. Okay. And that's what works for me, right? So what I do is, again, really focusing, and it takes a while. Like, you think 30 breaths is quick. Sometimes I'm like, I gotta go. But it's a way for me to slow myself down and just getting my feet on that grass, whether it works for recovery or if it doesn't. I'm going to tell you, I feel good afterwards. Yeah. I'm an N of 1, right? So a study of 1. And it's not hurting. If anything, having my feet on the ground. Of course, if you were talking about through physics, probably the ocean, probably the best with electricity due to the electrolytes that you see.
Ocean meaning in the actual water, or like between the sand and the...
Yeah, in the actual water.
In the actual water. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've yet to meet the person that doesn't feel good walking on the beach.
Yeah. Well, I feel like walking on the beach is just stress reduction too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And then for those that are more into the medical realm, and I call it grounding on steroids, would be a PEMF mat, pulse electromagnetic field mat. I kind of put that together. And again, this is just working on electricity, getting our body, which is an electrical system, to be more efficient, right? So we tend to run, again, depending on what you read, between 90 to 112 millivolts to be efficient. And so it's interesting to see
that is interesting.
right, when we've lost our charge.
Yeah.
Right? When you and I were young, we had remote control cars, and it doesn't just stop, right? It goes, slows down, right?
Yeah.
How often have we felt like that, where we just don't feel that charge,
So when you do that, is this a mat that you're stepping on?
Yeah, there's pulse electromagnetic field mats. There's also, in terms of grounding, there's grounding sheets, which, people plug in and things like that. I try to do as much as natural as I can, but there are times when I am injured. My son was recently injured. No, he's on a PEMF mat. We're going to crank up that charge.
Wow. So do you see a lot of the things we talk about at more of the pro level, or do you see a lot of this recovery being done at the collegiate level too?
It's starting to come down to the collegiate level. The pros, absolutely. The downside about professional athletes is because it's very competitive, everybody's holding on to their regimens and they don't like to share. And I get it. Everybody's trying to have the edge on someone, but you're starting to go to different collegiate programs. I'll give you an example. Wrestling, you can go to certain colleges in the Midwest where they have hyperbaric chambers, cryotherapy, red light panels, and it's all about recovery, which is amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love is when a physician says, hey, no, I'm a physician, but I want to work with the physical therapist and the trainer as a team.
Yep.
Right. And I think once you start involving physical therapists, because their medicine is really movement, you really start coming with really good protocols. There was a good protocol. And I forget when this was written, so I'm pardon if I'm wrong on this, but it was done with ACL tears and vibroacoustic therapy. So these patients literally had ACL tears, they included vibroacoustic therapy, and they healed about 30% quicker than the traditional. Wow. So that's a great way of incorporating traditional surgical methods with maybe some physical therapy, vibroacoustic therapy that gets you in this parasympathetic tone.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we go to that other room?
Yeah.
And you can kind of show me what we were talking about with the kind of the same thing that LeBron James uses.
That's right.
That way we can show the viewers.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what is this? Because I've seen this before, and I was always curious, why does LeBron James use this?
Right. So these are soft chamber hyperbaric chambers. And these will go to about 1.3 to 1.5 atmospheres. So not as much as the 2 to 2.5 hard shells that you'll see, which you get, again, a higher load. These are lower, but safer to do on your own, right?
I see.
And so on a soft chamber alone, just getting in here without oxygen, because we pump oxygen in there as well, just with pressure alone, you'll improve, right, that gradient with pressure, your oxygenation by about 46%. It's amazing.
Wow.
So remember, oxygen acts as a major antioxidant, right? So especially with inflammation.
So this will help reduce inflammation. Is this something that pro athletes like LeBron James does every day? Or is this?
So you have people like, the ones that really made it famous was Floyd Mayweather and, of course, LeBron James. And I think using it 2 to 3 times a week is feasible.
Okay.
Right? But also, what were these guys again? These guys are measuring their inflammatory markers, and they have all the money in the world to do that.
Yeah.
But when people jump into these hyperbaric chambers, many of them are doing it nowadays to prevent injury versus in the past, we just jumped in here when we were injured.
Yeah. It's a big difference. If we talk about, I'm going to go down to more youth now, high school.
Yep.
How do we get someone to, at a younger level, understand recovery and nutrition in the proper way? Because at that age, we can get away with a lot of things.
Right.
So how do we get it to, so we don't even get in that situation in the first place?
Well, my only, rebuttal to that would be we're seeing such an increase in non-contact injuries, right? And we see many of these kids at a younger age, Tommy John's injuries, right? Hamstring pulls like no other. So I would say, no, this is something at a very young age, we need to get these kids, focused on decreasing that processed foods. Don't want to get sued for saying this, but all the Takis and all that stuff, right? We have to let these athletes know that, one, you're not getting as much nutrients as you should just do the farming practice. But now you add in these omega-6s at such high levels, you're going to get injured. And most of these athletes, but at the same time, I think as a parent, and not at all trying to teach people how to parent, but we also have to let kids live. So again, how much? So maybe it's okay to have Takis after the game, right? Maybe it's okay to go have a burger after the game. But I think these kids that are doing it consistently, no, it will catch up to them. It will catch up.
And that's an interesting topic that like you kind of hinted at, was like injuries happening earlier and surgeries happening earlier. I know a lot of high school kids who have had like ACL and meniscus. Do you think a lot of this is mainly from like doing sports at a younger age and maybe specializing early? Or do you think it's a combination of the nutrition aspect that's not being reeled in?
I really think it's the nutrition. I am and I'm obviously biased in that, but I took care of a gentleman the other day with scurvy. I learned that in medical school.
Yeah.
And this bleeding gums, everything, no gingivitis. We checked his micronutrient levels and they were extremely low. Now, he was on a GLP and all this from his primary care, which I'm not against. So nowadays, these kids are just not getting the proper fuel, right? We're seeing, this is a very scary statistic that was just released by the CDC. And I don't see very many kids, but 1 in 3 adolescents is pre-diabetic in the United States. 1 in 2 adults is pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
That is nuts. So when we say pre-diabetic, we also think hyperinsulinemic, right? Hyperinsulinemic, so we get the dark neck, acanthosis, skin tags. And remember, when our insulin's high, our stem cells don't work, right? So again, repair, lack of nutrients, I really think. And then to top it all off, the sleep. I made this joke. I have a lot of students with me. When I was a kid, we all had a friend that was a baseball player that drank Mountain Dew. Hey, don't hang out with that kid because that will keep you up. So I said, let's look up how much caffeine Mountain Dew has. 70 milligrams, I believe. 70 milligrams of caffeine, if I'm saying that right. If you were to look at the average drink now, like Starbucks, you're looking at 90. Look at Red Bulls and all, you go to 120. If you look at pre-workout, because it has to be under 400 in the United States, right, for the FDA, pre-workouts are about 300 and some. So you got people that are walking around over-caffeinated. Yeah. And the reason that's important, because once you hit, there's great data of how beneficial caffeine is, especially for athletes. But once you hit over 400, it's actually the opposite. How it starts putting pressure, hypothalamic axis, testosterone goes down, sleep quality goes down. So we have kids that are micronutrient deficient, overstimulated on caffeine, and then probably not getting enough sleep due to our phones. Yeah. Right. One of the injuries that I take care of so much, and again, I don't see kids, but I think it's the American Academy of Pediatrics, but UCSF had a big study on the increase on the thumb and elbow. Yeah. They think due to texting. Oh yeah. Right. So it's like these kids are on, and so I get it. As a parent, I have kids that are on the phone, but I tell my son, hey man, during camp, at least 2-3 days a week. There was a study at University of Chicago that mentioned, and this isn't the goal, but you can make up 3 bad days of sleep or 1 good day of sleep. If I remember reading that correctly. Yeah. So I'm not saying to party for 3 days and then get 1 good day, but maybe, you have a limit. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe you're allowed to enjoy life a little bit. Yeah. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, that phone's off by 7 or 6. Different ways to think about it.
Now, do you feel like, if we think collegiate level, because your son plays college, do collegiate coaches know the impact of how much a phone can be a detriment to players? Like, does Coach Prime ever say anything to your son or to other players saying like, hey, you need to stay off the phone before the game or the night before?
They're starting to. So West Virginia, they have all their kids on an Oura Ring now. And they met during camp. They get penalized if they don't get 8 hours of sleep. Isn't that amazing? Here at Fresno State, when Coach Tedford was here, he was really big, again, on monitoring. They had some type of vest where they were measuring heart rate variability. So it's getting there. It's definitely getting there. And so these are investments. Collegiate athletes now, it's not true amateur. These kids are getting paid.
NIL,
NIL, baby, NIL. So if you're going to put this money into someone in a program, you want that. You want production. And so it is definitely leading that way, which eventually will go down to high school as well.
So last question, and this is going to be very difficult to answer. So, this is probably more like a just one of those questions you ask randomly, you think of like 2 a.m. in the morning. What's worse for an athlete? Let's say a pre-workout drink that is heavy caffeine, like 350 to 400 milligrams, or the iPhone and not regulating how much you're using it.
Ooh, that is, yeah. Well, without really thinking for too long, I would say the iPhone. And the reason I would say the iPhone is on multiple factors. There's also a lot of psychological studies with anxiety, right? It's quick stimulation, which actually has an effect on our adrenal glands, right? The release of cortisol, right? So we know through, again, different psychiatric studies that social media can really have an effect on how you think of yourself, and confidence is key for an athlete, right? So one, we're affecting the way they feel of themselves, but then two, we're causing insomnia. Right. I think one of the worst things is having that phone on, especially late for athletes. And again, I didn't have time to think of that answer,
right?
But I'm willing.
Well, I gave you a tough one on purpose.
Yeah, that's all right. And if I can say all these questions we didn't prep for them, I'm mad. It's sometimes better, but I think it's that tough, Athletes, they really struggle with it. People think they're the most confident. No, you and I know that's why they're sports psychologists, a boxer. Oh my gosh, a pitcher, a batter. When they get out of rhythm, it can be devastating. Yeah. So why feed the fire even more with something that can affect your sense of well-being, your internal well-being? I'm a big believer, old school, man. Your music, right? Get into the zone, meditation.
Right.
I don't really see the benefit of scrolling through social media to get you better.
So have a hard cutoff. You're saying 7 p.m. And then definitely not day of, right? Game
probably
day.
Not the day of, and I think in the night before. But I do think you can be a little too strict as a parent. And there's nothing wrong with you being on the phone. And this actually, I'm going to tell you this. My son, and not without me telling him, he doesn't have TikTok, right? And he makes sure that he's not on his phone because it means that much to him to impress Coach Prime, Coach Falk, who just left. And again, it's a game of inches.
Yeah.
And the problem with that, and I was an athlete as well, we all want our opportunity.
Right.
I just need an opportunity.
Yeah.
But when your opportunity comes, because it will, are you ready?
Right.
Did you do everything for those 3 months, for those 3 seconds?
Yeah.
And again, going back to that game of seconds, of millimeters, if you're out, with a phone. And the crazy thing is, you and I know there's a guy out there that parties and he's still running a 4.240, right? But unless you're him, you need every little edge.
Right. And that edge, that time where you are ready to shine, you have to have the prep work done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you got to be ready for it.
One of the athletes that I take care of, a Virgil Ortiz, amazing boxer, he showed me a film. And this guy throws a cross at him. He throws a jab at him. And he got so close that it took the contact out of his eye.
Oh my God.
That's how close it got. Then he backs up, hits the guy, knocks him out. And I thought about it, to have that type of reflex.
Yeah.
Amazing. But guess what? Virgil doesn't drink. Virgil takes care of it. And I said, wow, that was definitely a time of, when you're ready, it's like, wow. So maybe, sleeping, not using the phone, it's not going to make you faster. It's not going to make you stronger, but it's going to help you be the best you.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to say, because there are studies that if you use the phone prior to the game, it actually can slow you down cognitively and reflexes.
Oh my gosh.
So it actually can slow you down in the immediate interim.
Wow.
Yeah. Especially with your eye tracking.
Yeah.
Your eye tracking slows down because it fatigues on the phone when you scroll.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so cognitive and visually, function-wise, it will make an impact immediately after.
Wow.
But so hard cutoff.
Yeah.
7 o'clock, hard cutoff.
That's right. The phone will be there when you're done with the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything you can text her afterwards.
Anything else you would want to add where you feel like would be beneficial for people to know about recovery?
Oh my gosh. I think, again, is having a balance in everything. For my patients, I tell them, hey, one of the most common mistakes I see is either you're all in or you're all out, right? And it doesn't last. So for me to say I'm going to cold plunge every day or hyperbaric chamber every day or it makes it hard. It's only so many minutes. But if you say, hey, Tuesdays and Thursdays are my recovery days. Hey, Mondays and Fridays are my sauna days.
Yeah.
It makes it much more feasible because the season is long and we need you there that long.
Right.
In getting into a recovery before you're injured. So it's as simple as me saying, hey, I'm going to go to the dentist only when I have a cavity. You say, that's ridiculous, right?
Right.
The same thing goes with recovery. If you can get it just kind of like your every 6-month cleanings, right? Twice a week, just getting in there to keep your body able to handle the allostatic.
So create a schedule and add the recovery in the schedule. Absolutely. That way it happens. And then that way you don't feel overwhelmed. Because I think a lot of athletes feel overwhelmed. There's this, there's that. I got to do all these things. It's like 3 full-time jobs that they're juggling. Mm-hmm. They still got to train. They don't know if they're going to get cut or not. Yeah. So if you create a schedule and add in the recovery pieces, that can make it easier.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, appreciate your time.
Sean,
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Just spitting gems out here. That's amazing.
I appreciate it, man.